Welcome to the Americana Bistro Grill. I'm your host, Roberto Alvarez-Galloso, serving you the best in Americana music. For me, it is a pleasure and an honor to have one of the greatest musicians and singers in Americana music, Ryan Little Eagle. I had the honor and privilege of seeing the majority of his YouTube videos. And at a time when many people want to place Americana in New York, Hollywood, even Nashville, he exposes what is the true Americana. What is the true Americana? The true Americana is the music of the indigenous people and how he brought the music of the indigenous people, which is the true Americana music, to the center of Americana music as it should be. For me, it is a pleasure and honor having you, Ryan Little Eagle.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to definitely be here and do this interview and kind of talk about Americana music. You know, for me, uh, for me, Americana music's all about storytelling and about the stories and the songs and songwriting. So, appreciate you taking a liking to my music and listening to it and taking the time to see some of my different videos that I posted out there over the last 15 years.
No, but just what you have is much more than you have the Americana music, but it's really, really very, it's it's much more than what other people have seen. You are actually the true Americana music. How
Yeah,
did you get started? How did you get started? Let's start. How did you get started? How is your career present wise? And how do you see the future? And then I'm also going to add another question into this
for sure.
four questions. What was the inspiration behind the album Native Americana, as well as the video and song Made for Two and Texas and I Belong?
So Native Americana was kind of a concept for me. As a musician, everybody's always trying to pigeonhole you into what you are. And, for years, your country, well, you're not quite country, you're folk. And then, Americana music's been more of a upsurge in popularity over the last decade. And for me, I don't, when I was starting off singing and playing guitar, I was definitely more like your George Strait 90s country. But as I've traveled and my sounds evolved, it's not quite folk, it's not quite country, it's more in that realm of storytelling. And so when, everybody's got to have a gimmick, and mine was Indian country and Native Americana. And then I dropped the Indian country and stuck more with the Native Americana as my music kind of focuses more on those roots when that mixture of the indigenous sound. For me, I started off as a Native American flute player. I played world music for probably about 10, about 9, 10 years. And I just got burnt out doing that. So I ended up picking up guitar and learning the songwrite. And from there, I started fusing my old music with the new music I was working on. And that's kind of where Native Americana came from. And the songs on the album, I would write songs I never thought about recording, and I met a good friend of mine. His name is Devin Sants out in South Dakota. And as we were talking, he convinced me to work with a friend of his by the name of Tom Freer. He had a studio called Cottonwood Recording, and I started slowly working with Tom. And I had all these songs that I'd written and never really thought about using. And due to Tom's influence and Devin's influence and their encouragement, I started recording the songs that I wrote. And so on the album, it turned out to be 5 original songs. And then there's a song a friend of mine wrote called Rough in Carolina. I really like being able to showcase friends and showcase like kind of what we do. And then one of them was the song Made for Two. So how I wrote that song, I used to live down in South Texas, and they have dance halls everywhere. I mean, you can go dancing Monday to Sunday. in different areas. And I did a karaoke one time, and I did it at a dance hall, and people came out, were dancing, and I wanted that feeling and wanted to capture that feeling, and I wanted a song that people could dance to and fall in love. And for me, I was playing a show, and it was just dead. It was a restaurant where just one of those off days. I was dating a girl at the time, and she came in, and so I looped my guitar with my pedal, and I grabbed her, and we danced. We danced around that room, and that kind of is where the inspiration for the song came from. And it's evolved over time to where, when recording it, we got a good friend of mine by the name of Leslie Klein, and she was featured in it. And so that song kind of came to be from that moment of just wanting to have a chance for people to be able to do, you know, just to be able to fall in love and get to know each other that way. I have a good friend of mine that I opened up for on New Year's Eve back during 2020, and um, that night he had his girlfriend, and he was playing. I already played my set. He was playing, needed a bathroom break, so he had me come up and put in a couple songs. And I guess he had just enough liquid courage and her right behind him that they actually danced to that song. And a year later, they were engaged. And then July of 2022, they got married, and I actually played that song at their reception. So, it's stuff like that I wanted that song to be able to do and kind of have that impact. And when I was, I'm in South Dakota most of the year. Right now, I'm down north of Atlanta. I travel playing shows from Polbridge, Montana to South Texas. And when I was up there, there's a place called the Shoot Rooster. Good friends of mine own it, and it's a great place that supports some of the local music scene there in the Black Hills. And they have a cool little upstairs loft that they set up to be like an event venue slash up top bar. And when I went in there, I literally told my friend Ryan, I was like, man, we're going to shoot a music video here. And that's actually a video that is online right now on YouTube. And, you know, brought in a friend of mine from Atlanta to kind of come direct it. And, that was kind of recapturing that moment of being in like a Texas dance hall. And, that was something that was special for that particular song. And then Texas. Now, like I said, I used to live down in South Texas. My grandmother ended up remarrying when my mom was young, and it was a gentleman. His name was Gary Marchant. Everybody called him Don. He he kind of was a cowboy from up in a little place called Shamrock, Texas, out near Amarillo,
Mhm.
and he was a guy who really stepped up into the role of being a dad. My actual grandfather at the time just he wasn't a good father. He did disappear essentially and kind of cut ties. And that's when Don stepped up. And later on, as he was a father to my mother, he became a grandfather to me. And he was one of those people that could fly out the handle and lose his temper. But after, a couple minutes, it was just done. There was no harping on it. He had a lot of love and a lot of love in his heart. And about 15 years ago, we lost him, and it took a long time for us to deal with that. For me, like I said, living on the road is hard, and there's times that you kind of hit that point of feeling, I don't know, kind of hopeless in a way. And I was I was at the house in South Dakota, and just kind of feeling down. And I was thinking about him and what he taught me about how to like stand strong and kind of what he represented to me. And so I ended up writing that song, Texas, about him and about the love that he had for me and my family and kind of the rock that he was. Uh, It was actually a good healing moment for me, my mom, my grandma. When he passed, we just kind of, I don't know that we shoved it under the rug, but we just, like, we remembered him. Of course, we loved him, but it was just too hard to deal with that pain. And that song kind of brought us all back together and reminded us of him and kind of put him back in our hearts and, relit that fire that he was in our family. And then there's the song "I Belong." There was a real low point. I was supposed to do about a month worth of gigs between different reservations around South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. And it was supposed to be a huge thing kind of going on the road. A guy by the name of Brandon Ferguson had quote unquote organized it. But what ended up happening was all of it was a lie. He basically took people's money and then disappeared, and none of the shows happened. He actually still owes me 10 grand for that show. But it was just one of those, I had sacrificed my own living to go do that and kind of got stranded with it. And it's kind of like I was saying about my grandfather, it's remembering those moments and that inner strength. At the time, there was this show called Reservation Dogs. It was one of the first like actual television shows written, directed, and starring Indigenous people. In this particular episode that came out, one of the main characters was struggling with loss in her life and was struggling with her friends because they were all kind of drifting apart. And she went to go talk to her auntie, to her elder, and she was sitting there, kind of explaining everything and feeling low. One of the spirits was talking to her auntie and, was telling her auntie kind of like, comfort her. And in doing that, she told her, close your eyes, take a deep breath in your hands, hear the song. And this scene, you start seeing all her relatives like behind her, people that she had come from, the different people of the Creek Nation, those who survived the Trail of Tears, those who made life in Oklahoma, those who came later before. And that whole episode just stuck with me because it made me think about, who do we come from as our own families? We come from four sets of grandparents, eight sets of great grandparents, 16 sets of great great grandparents. And it's like our roots, as indigenous people, we come from healers, we come from warriors, we come from survivors, we come from people who fought to keep our way of life alive. We come from, I come from a long line of family members who have served in the military, a long line of warriors. I come from a long line of travelers. My mom, my grandma, I come from warrior women, some of the strongest women you'll ever meet in their life. Uh, I come from caring, compassionate people. I come from medicine people on my father's side, you know, and it's just reminding and remembering those people. That's who makes us. That's our strength, you know, and that's, if we come from those lines, what does that say about the strength that we have in our own DNA? And that's where that song "I Belong" came in. It was, you know, thinking about those times when you're sitting low and feeling low, but remembering that your ancestors, those spirits are always with you and they're there to help you stand strong, even when you feel like you can't. They're there to remind you who you are. The chorus for that song is, "I come from healers and survivors, warriors who fought to keep us alive. From my mother and my father, my grandma and my grandpa, they taught me to be strong, and it's from them I belong." So that was kind of the story on that song. It We weren't quite sure the direction we wanted to take in the actual like production side of it, but as we got to moving through it, it felt more like a kind of more power in that, so it became a little bit more on the rock side versus the kind of Appalachian folky side the rest of the album was taking. And it's really connecting to that. Lakota, you'll hear say Mutakli Oyasin, meaning that we're all related. and it's deeper than just like a physical relation. Is that we are related to everything around us, from the sky, the trees, the animals, the water, and how all that is connected. And even with that, it's thinking about people like in Lakota, you had like Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, Gaul, Red Cloud. You had those who fought to keep the hills from being sold, to keep the Lakota way alive. You have those who fought and survived from the islands, like the Tainos,
Hmm.
and that was, it was just a huge reminder of those connections and those relations.
The Taínos and also the Siboney of Cuba,
Hmm.
which is another tribe.
Yep, I'm actually a Taino on my mother's side.
Mhm.
My one of my aunties, she's a cacique. She's a leader, done a lot of work with like the United Nations and stuff. And even that right there, Taino people were said to be extinct, yet they're still here as a people, even to this day, throughout the Caribbean, even here in the mainland.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen many. I've known people also who are descendants of Taino and also actual members of Taino. You
Hmm.
said that you burned out with the world music, but the thing is, your music, which is Native Americana,
Hmm.
which is the true Native Americana, is, in my opinion, I classify it as world music. It is a world patrimony.
Yeah,
You didn't burn out. You just simply took the world music to another level, to Native
yeah,
Americana. And you also infused the Americana music that you see in Nashville and some other inventions in New York or Hollywood.
yeah,
And you returned it to its roots to make it Native Americana. You have actually invented or actually recovered the Americana music and returned it to its original genre, original owner. That's the word I'm trying to find. And it's also classified as world music because your music, the Native Americana, reverberates in other parts of the world
yeah,
with the Inuit in Russia, Inuit in Canada, and even some of the tribes in South America.
oh yeah,
Yes. Your flute music, your music with the traditional indigenous flutes, reminds me of the group called Iyapu. I bought their album. Iyapu is like Chile's version of a mixture of soft rock, some Kiss, because many people were going to the Hollywood, the John
yes,
Travolta, the Saturday Night Fever. Very few
yeah,
people, including myself, went to see Iyapu. Iyapu was the Kiss in indigenous rock music because people wanted to see
yeah,
Iyapu. And they had the same thing, the flutes and everything.
yeah.
How long have you been playing the indigenous flutes?
I've been playing for about 15, 16 years now. It was one of those I'd heard other people play it. I never really, I always talk with people about that because we talk about music and we constantly compare notes. Everybody's, I wanted to be a rock star when I was 5 or when I was 10 or when I was a kid. For me, it didn't happen until much later on in life. I always tell people I stumbled into music. Um, I heard friends of mine play that instrument and I ended up at a powwow at a native festival, and I heard it again. I saw there was a guy there selling the flute, and he had some very that were inexpensive. And I told myself, well, I'll try it. Let me get this one first. If I get one that doesn't cost a lot, if I don't like it and don't do well, then I'm not missing out on too much money. But if I like it, at least it was an initial investment, and I people say I took to it like a duck takes to water. It was just one of those things that was always meant to be. And it opened up a lot of doors and it allowed me to kind of connect with myself both spiritually and um, even culturally, it brought me into doing more powwows and to dancing. It was really it was something that allowed me to travel the world. I got to go down to Peru and play some music with a group called Wayana Inca. They rebranded into a group called Perusa. And yeah, it's crazy to think how long I've been playing it. But I just, when I said I got burnt out, it was just because that's all I was ever known for. Um, Literally, I show up, hey, you gonna play today? Hey, you got your flutes with you? Hey, you got that? Hey, you gonna play a flute? You gonna play your flutes? And I wanted to show that I could do other things. So now it's kind of cool that I can actually combine that old way of doing music and that new way with the guitar and singing. So it's one of those things that's kind of evolved over time.
Great. Where can we find your music, especially the album Native Americana? Because I'm planning to get Native Americana after this interview and
Yeah,
hope to get an autograph too.
for sure, for sure. So Native Americana right now is available online. You can go to my website and order it. Um, I my flute CDs right now are on back order. Unfortunately, the host site that I was using ended up, because I hadn't ordered them in a certain amount of time, they decided to drop them, so I got to re-upload them. But if you're wanting to stream it, of course, you can stream it on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music, anywhere that you can stream Tidal. That's one of the that's where you can hear it every day and play it if you didn't buy the album physically.
You gave me a great idea. In addition to buying your CD, I'm going to go to Spotify. I have a Spotify account. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna find Ryan Little Eagle in Spotify and add Ryan Little Eagle to my list of favorite music. And
heck
at the
yeah, I
same time,
appreciate
I'm
that.
gonna check those. I'm gonna also check if Iyapu, the Chilean rock group,
Yeah,
has the same Spotify, so I could add them.
heck yeah,
Because it was their music also that led me to your music.
yeah,
So I do want to thank you for taking the time to appear in the
yeah.
Americana Bistro Grill and to
Well, thank
give
you for having me.
the whole world, because we do transfer to the whole world.
Heck yeah,
The actually reality of Americana music, that you actually do the true Americana music, that yours is the true one that led to the foundation and formation of other Americana music. In other words, you've been true with your roots.
yeah,
And please, to my public, go to all of the digital media, Spotify, and also buy the physical CD. I'm going to be putting in the YouTube and all of my other mediums, the website and the YouTube channel of Ryan Little Eagle, so you could stream his hits. At the same time, we in the Americana Bistro Grill, we are not commercial. We do not receive any money for what we're doing. We receive it from donations. We're like a miniature version of PBS without being PBS. We don't even get anything from the government for private entities. So please also visit the Americana Bistro Grill. You can visit my YouTube channel, Alvarez-Galloso, and see us in Rumble, BitChute, Brighteon, Gab, Facebook, YouTube. We're not yet on Spotify, but we're getting on Spotify. We're getting on
heck yeah.
Spotify. And please visit us. And also, if you want to make donations, you could also donate via Zelle. The email address, which is in Linktree, is also available there. Before I leave, please again buy from Ryan Little Eagle. He's one of the greatest, and also buy from other indigenous Native Americana artists, in which we will also extend an invitation to them to be interviewed in our program. This is
Heck
Roberto
yeah.
Alvarez-Galloso from Florida, having interviewed Ryan Little Eagle in Georgia, somewhere north of Atlanta. Peace in, peace out, and peace everywhere. Thank you, and until the next time.
Thank you for having me. Talk
You're
shot.
welcome.